Hi, this is Conrad Murray from PowerSyncPro, and today I'm going to demonstrate to you the PowerSyncPro migration agent. We're going to take a Windows 10 workstation and migrate it between two Microsoft 365 tenants. In my source tenant, which is called IT Murray, we're going to migrate it across to my target tenant, Blanco Nero. In my source environment, my Windows 10 workstation is Active Directory domain joined. It is also hybrid Azure AD joined and enrolled into Microsoft Intune. At the end of this migration process, the Windows workstation will be AD domain disjoined. It will have left the Azure AD in the source and will become Azure AD joined directly to the target tenant. On the Windows workstation, the applications will be migrated and ready for first use, including Outlook, Teams, OneDrive, and so on. But also the Windows 10 user profile will be migrated so it's ready to be logged on directly with an Azure AD account. Okay, so let's jump into our PowerSyncPro migration agent demonstration. First up, we're going to head on over to the PowerSyncPro console, and we can look at how we set up and configure a Windows workstation for migration. And the first thing we see here is our batches. I give my batch a simple display name so that I can understand what computer accounts are in this batch. I've got my source environment and my target environment. So let's have a look at what's involved in this batch. And inside the batch, this is where we list the computers that are in scope, the users that are in scope, and a number of runbooks. And the runbooks are the real meat action that happens on the machine. So we've got some prerequisites that need to run. We have a system runbook, and we have runbooks that run in the user context. In future releases of the software, we won't need the user runbook. Everything will run under the system runbook. So let's have a look at these runbooks. They have a number of steps to undertake to complete the migration. Obviously, we need to start the migration. We're going to back up any local group members. We're going to leave the old environment. We're going to join it to the new environment. We're going to repermission the teams, set up Outlook for reconfiguration, the Office activation, but most importantly, we need to repermission or re-ACL the Windows user profiles. And we can also deal with things like AIP encryption on the way. Here's our console again, showing the agents. There's no agent installed yet, but we have a dashboard, so we'll be able to see the status of each progress as the agent is running and doing its thing. And then if we have a look at the agent detail, we can see that actually on my machine that I'm going to be migrating, there's no agent installed yet. Let's have a look at our Windows workstation before migration and just see how it's configured and set up. So if we look at our familiar dsreg command here, we can see that it is Azure AD joined. It's also Active Directory domain joined according to dsreg command. We can look at our Intune URL, so we can see that it's there. And if we look at the company portal, we can certainly see that this is a managed device as far as Intune is confirmed. And a final confirmation here, if we look at the Access Work or School, we can click onto the Info tab, and there's our final confirmation. This is definitely a managed device being managed by my source tenant by Intune. Here's the Microsoft Word application, again showing my logged in user. I've got an AIP encrypted document, so as I was saying, we can take across these AIP information that we need, so in the target environment we'll continue to be able to work, and again showing Andy Murray is logged into Word. If we have a look in Azure AD and Intune and we look at the devices in Azure AD, there's my device. Clearly you can see that it is hybrid Azure AD joined, it is MDM enrolled to Intune, and if we look in Intune itself, we can see there's my device, and thankfully you can see it's a compliant device. Good news, so we're all set up. Source environment's all good. We can look in the Active Directory on premises, and again, this is where my AD is listing out my computer in the OU, and that's going to sync via AD Connect to make it hybrid joined. Here's our agent installation. It's just a simple MSI file, as you'd expect, and the MSI can be pushed out through any of your normal mechanisms, through SCCM, through a login scripts, through GPO, or even through an Intune push deployment if you're migrating between Azure ADs, for example. And I'm just going to use a simple batch file. I'll call the MSI executable. I need to pump in a pre-shared key so I can set up the secure channel, and then it will get a certificate to the machine and have a public-private key pair for encryption to the back-end console, which is listed as my endpoint. So I'll just kick off my batch file here. and it's our normal sort of next install screens. There is a quiet mode for this, so the user doesn't have to see this. Installs the program files, and let's jump back onto the console now, and we'll have a look at what that agent appears in the back end. So here's my agent. We can see it in the console. I can see my computer name. I can see the version. We'll jump back to our workstation and we're ready to roll. The end user gets a notification. They get a migration warning. They've got 60 minutes to close out their work before their migration starts. If they've got a lot of work on, that timer will count down to 45, 30 minutes. But if they're ready to go on the system tray, there's the little icon there, and they can initiate the migration because they're ready to migrate right now. First thing that happens is they actually get logged off, and the workstation will be rebooted so that it can undertake the system runbooks that need to run in the system context. End users will know there's a migration happening because there's a splash screen desktop there that lets them know the migration is in progress. If we go back to our console now, we can see the agent detail. We can see the steps that have completed, the steps that have not yet completed, and there's drill down information about this. And all of this agent information is actually written to the Windows 10 event log and gets rolled up and sent back to the console. And we can see in our agent progress, we saw that the prereqs had run, the system runbook was still in progress, and we look at the workstation, sure enough, that was in progress. Now let's go back to our workstation and look at the progress. And we can now see the system runbook is completed. We can go to the agent logs and get a lot more information about what the agent has done. After the system runbooks have completed, we need the first time user to log in. I've taken over my domain, so Andy Murray is actually logging in with the same UPN, which is a very common use case. And now Andy is logged in. There's a dialog there to say the migration is still in progress and it's running those user steps. But as we said, this will now be done under the system context. So the users will be able to leave their machines on a Friday, they're on company A, tenant A. On Monday, they'll be on company B, tenant B. One final reboot here. All done. Let's get back to work. Let's start up those applications. There'll be a nice notification letting the user know their migration is completed. So let's get logged in. And voila, there we go. Migration completed successfully. We can fire up our Microsoft applications now. With Outlook, Word, Excel, OneNote, OneDrive, Teams, all ready to go in their out-of-office box experience if necessary. There's our Teams client. We just saw our Outlook client loaded up there. And if we look at our OneDrive configuration, we've been through the setup of OneDrive, and sure enough, we can see that my OneDrive is connected to the target tenant, and I use some migration software to migrate over those OneDrive files. And in the target Azure AD, we can see that my machine is actually Azure AD joined. So another successful Windows migration done with our PowerSyncPro migration agent. Thanks for watching the PowerSyncPro migration agent demonstration. If you'd like to learn more about the product, head on over to PowerSyncPro.com, where you can learn more about the migration agent or also our directory synchronization software. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can drop us an email to info@PowerSyncPro.com, where we'd be happy to take your questions or even set up a demonstration and understand your needs for directory synchronization or migrations. I've been Conrad Murray for PowerSyncPro. Thanks again, and hope to see you soon.